We're going to be making some delicious turkey meatballs. And that gets us talking about another blood cell boosting nutrient, vitamin B12. So basically, vitamin B12 is found mostly in foods that come from animals. So you get it from your meat, poultry, milk products, eggs, fish. So for people that are very strict vegetarians or vegans, it can be difficult to get enough vitamin B12. There's only a couple of things, you might find some fortified foods that have vitamin B12 in them. We did a class where we used some nutritional yeast, which isn't like your cooking or baking yeast, but it's basically a type of fungus that is sometimes fortified with some extra vitamin B12. So that's an option if you're very strict. But so basically, if you don't get enough of the folate, like we talked about in the last recipe, or if you don't get enough vitamin B12, there's a type of anemia that can develop called megaloblastic anemia. What that means is basically your body will still produce red blood cells, but they'll be big and kind of pale looking. I was going to say sad and pale and weak. And they won't be able to function as well. So they won't be able to carry oxygen effectively around your body. And so that's why you get that feeling that is associated with most anemias. You're tired, you're weak, you're short of breath, and you're irritable. So again, a very important nutrient to make sure that your red blood cells are formed well. And I'll tell you more about vitamin B12 once Jeremy gets our meatballs rolling.
Okay, so first thing, we're going to start off with a few ingredients. They're known as fillers. I don't like the word filler because when you refer to fillers in the industry, in food industry, it's usually like just garbage stuff that they pump in to products to beef them up a little bit. So ours, they're meant to beef up the meatballs a bit, so it's not all meat. Or if you're making a vegetarian one, it's not all of that kind of base ingredient. But it's adding flavor, it's adding texture, it's adding color.
And fiber and nutrients.
And fiber and nutrients, yes. So we're going to start off with our meatball ingredients. So we have a little saute pan here, medium saute pan. Just a little bit of olive oil. And I have some red onion chopped up, some garlic chopped up. So that's going to go in.
I thought you could heat up olive oil.
So that's a great question. Regular olive oil, so just pure olive oil, it's usually your cheaper stuff. It has a higher smoking point than your extra virgin olive oil. So extra virgin olive oil is a little more expensive. It's got a really nice fruity taste and not the greatest smoking point. So you don't want to heat that up. But just pure olive oil, regular olive oil, cheap stuff. You can heat that up.
And also, Jeremy doesn't have it on a screaming high heat. It's not like he's doing like a high heat stir fry or something like that. He's doing like a low medium heat. So, like he said, that olive oil won't be destroyed.
Now, talking about cheap stuff, not like cheap product. So one thing that I will mention is when I do go to the grocery store. Yeah, economical. But when I do go to the grocery store, when I'm looking for oils and olive oils, I trust a few countries that it comes from. So I look for a product of Italy, and it's true because sometimes if they come from other areas, they could be blends, and it'll say olive oil, but I've heard things of them blending soya oil with olive oil. I've heard rumors of them blending lamp oil with products. I don't know what that, but. There's a difference between imported from and product of. So when I look for an olive oil, I usually try to find product of a certain place, so Italy, versus imported from Italy. Imported from Italy, all that means is that it was bottled there. The oil could have come from somewhere else. So look for a good product, but an economical product. Sure.
Can you recommend any other countries so we know you're not being biased towards Italy?
Yeah. I had some Greek friends that often clash heads that they have the best olive oil, so I don't agree. But Greek olive oil is very good. Spanish olive oil is very good. I know that.
What about in the Middle East?
So I don't know too many places in the Middle East. Portugal, yeah, they might bring in some good olive oils. So Chile, I know Chile is starting to bring, they're called the new age countries for olive oil.
How about a mix with the olive oil and the canola oil? Is that okay?
So, I mean, it depends on your stance on canola oil. I know that there's a little bit of controversy with canola oil. But that one there, for cooking, if you're going to use it, it's got a higher smoking point, yes. So it's good for higher heats.
Someone asked about coconut oil. My feeling, well, my personal feeling, but also based on the science that I've seen on coconut oil, I think people are going overboard with the coconut oil and cooking with it on top of a Western diet. So it's a source of saturated fat. To have it once in a while is probably fine, but to use it as your main cooking oil in every dish, it's going to be too much saturated fat. What we know about saturated fat, it's not good from a heart health point of view. And if you're including milk products and meat and poultry and other things in your diet, it's going to be too much saturated fat. What we know about olive oil, and the reason we use it as often as we can in the ELLICSR kitchen, is part of a Mediterranean diet, which there's a lot of research showing that's the best diet that most of us should try to be following if we can, in terms of reducing inflammation, keeping a healthy body weight, and the monounsaturated fat in the olive oil is basically neutral. So whereas a canola oil or a saturated fat like a coconut oil is more inflammatory. So with cancer, with a lot of these chronic diseases, we want to stay away from inflammation as much as possible. So that's why we really go for the olive oil when we can.
So
Great questions.
I've just added the squash. I've added butternut squash. I mean, this is the time that there are so many different types of squash now in your grocery stores. Before, you could only find pumpkins. Then they started bringing the butternut squash, and that was a big thing. Now you can find this one here, which is a Hubbard squash, buttercup squash, delicata squash. There's so many different types. So use whatever you like. They're all delicious.
But the spaghetti sauce would work. The spaghetti squash.
You can do spaghetti squash. Spaghetti squash, I find it's stringy. It's like spaghetti, right? So it breaks down a little bit quicker, but it would work with this. You can do it. Just the texture is going to be a little different. So, and it doesn't take long. So I've added the cube squash in here. It's going to take, about 5 minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and add my other flavor. So I have a little bit of ground cumin. I think cumin and squash is fantastic together. But if you don't like cumin, don't add.
One more fruit that fights cancer. Is that in the list, the
Cumin, so I think you're thinking of curcumin, which is in turmeric. And so that one, there's a lot of research looking at diabetes and cancer. Some smaller human studies, but most of the studies have been, cell and animal studies showing that it helps to reduce tumor growth. With cumin, it does contain some antioxidants, and it is a healthy spice. There's not as much research showing the health benefits of it just yet, but still, good one to use. Yep, and so we have a comment here, it's helpful for digestion. Yep. Might help to settle your stomach a bit, so.
And I've also added just a little bit of chopped rosemary and sage. So that's going to go in, and it really takes about 5 minutes. Right at the end is when we're going to add the kale. The kale doesn't really take a long time to cook, and I just want to wilt it. So the heat from the rest of the ingredients is going to sort of wilt it, and I'm going to stir that through. Now the important thing before you start making your meatballs is this has got to cool. You do not want to be putting hot ingredients into raw meat. That is not a good situation. So let it cool. The best thing is actually to remove it out of your pan, bring it into a bowl, let it cool down a bit, and then you can put it into the refrigerator just until it's below room temperature.
So when you say it's not good, what we mean is from a food safety point of view, right? So you don't want to be mixing different temperatures. You always want your hot food hot, your cold food cold. And you don't want things to go into that middle danger zone. If anybody read about the cronut disaster, it was because some jelly was kept on the counter too long and not refrigerated. So they should have either gotten it really, really hot or kept it in the fridge. And it's when things sit out or get into that danger zone that it can be not a good situation for your poor little digestive tract.
So now for the meatballs, I'm adding some ground turkey. I've got some ground turkey here. You can do this again. If you want, you have your classic beef and veal meatball, but you can do this with ground turkey. Ground chicken will work as well.
This lean ground turkey?
This is ground turkey.
Is it lean?
Lean. This is lean ground turkey. Yeah. 1 egg, and I'm gonna add. These are quick cooking oats. They're just a little further processed than your large flake oats. And so I'm going to add that as like the breadcrumb binder. And then I have my cooled squash and kale mix. This on its own is a delicious side dish. It is fantastic, very, very good. And the colors are really nice.
So make a big batch, and then you
Make a big
could
batch,
reserve
exactly.
some for your meatballs and get more meals out of it, which I always like.
Keep it in the fridge,
The meatballs?
the mixture.
The mixture, I mean, it'll last, if you keep it in the fridge, it'll last a couple days. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing raw in there.
So I'd have to make a small batch for me.
Or you can freeze it. You can freeze it, you can add that mixture to soups as well. It's really nice. And we're gonna season it, just a little bit of salt, a little bit of black pepper. And just mix it up well. Now, I would suggest going in with your hands. That is the easiest way.
The best mixers you have.
Exactly. Your God-given tools. And so pretty much you just want to mix it up until it's combined, the eggs mixed throughout. And then you can start forming them into meatballs. Now, Christy said she wanted to try it, so I said.
How big should we make them?
And so you want to about an inch size for the temperature that I've given in the instructions. You can make them bigger. You're just going to have to cook them longer, that's all. Now, if you don't want to get messy, that's why I got her to start.
Hey!
You can find these are amazing. And when I'm doing big batches of meatballs, cookies, whatever it is, they have these little mini ice cream scoops. Yeah. No, but no, watch.
We're getting complaints
Get
from the
in there.
audience about the size of these
If
scoops.
you want a bigger meatball, you can get the bigger ice cream scoops. But you just go in there and it pops out these really nice meatballs.
I like mine better.
A lot of time. This I got it. I think it was a Kitchen Plus store. I think so. Most stores will have these little ice cream scoops.
He uses that for cookie batter, like all
I
kinds
have
of
one
stuff.
for meat and one for cookies.
Oh yeah,
But-
good point.
But just wash them well.
Calories, it's nice, but also you can trick yourself thinking I could have 2 or 3 of these.
That's right. So the small portion sizes, we do it often in Elixir Kitchen. Just for people with smaller appetites, it can be less intimidating. If you want to go for, a couple little bites, it doesn't seem like as big of a meal. Yeah, so it's not going to overwhelm you to have a huge meal at one time. So.
And so we're gonna roast them in the oven, and I bake the meatballs, 375 for about 25 minutes, 30 minutes, just until they're nice and golden brown on the outside. And you can see, it's not your regular meatball. You have these nuggets of squash in there, and this kale, beautiful, really, really nice. I'm just gonna move that to actually we'll put this in the
Can
fridge.
you serve them hot or cold?
You can serve them, yeah, I would usually serve things hot. You can serve them cold. The thing is, if you are refrigerating meat, you can refrigerate them. If you're going to serve them again, you want to heat them up. You want to heat them up until they're steaming inside. You can freeze them as well. Before you cook them, freeze them raw. They freeze very, very well, and then you can just pop them in the oven. They're
You
fantastic.
can put them in a nice cube tray and have square meat.
Yes, I don't like that trick. My mom used to do that. She used to hide herbs and stuff in the ice cube trays, and I
You
would
end
think
up
was
drinking
ice,
it.
and, yeah, it ended up all over the place.
Yeah, I wouldn't suggest putting ice cube trays of meat. I don't know. Something, I feel like a food safety situation might arise out of that. Somebody,
Plastic ones, but if you have the steel or the metal.
if you have steel
There's
or
even the
metal,
silicone ones.
label it well so nobody in your family gets a nice glass of warm meat or something. That would concern me.
Or they're bruised as a ice cube.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Those are good.
And we're gonna make a delicious
And
sauce.
so what I did was, because I didn't use all of the squash with the meatballs, the rest of the squash I just roasted it in the oven. And again, 375, it does not take too long. 375 for about 35 minutes, just until it becomes nice and soft. And you're gonna scoop that out and put it into a blender. Now this is just an extra step. I mean, you can do this with any sort of sauce.
But your winter squash are incredible. They're rich in a lot of antioxidants, so beta carotene, which is turned into vitamin A in your body and protects your eyes from losing your eyesight due to aging. And also, you can tell that the butternut, and I think the one that Jeremy's using as well, the ones with the really bright, beautiful orange color, are also usually high in vitamin C as well. So in a cup of this, you're getting about 1/3 of your requirements of vitamin C. So helping fight off infection, illness, all that good stuff.
We're going to add a little bit of yogurt. And just a squeeze of lemon juice in there. And this is a nice way to finish it. Use all your squash.
Did you put the olive oil and salt and pepper in?
Not yet, so I'm going to put the olive oil in. And if you, depending on the thickness, I mean, this is going to make a pretty thick, and this is like a soup. This is almost like you're making a soup. So a little bit of olive oil in, a little bit of salt and pepper. If you want a little thinner,
Would you add stock to it to thin it up?
you can add a little bit of stock or just
water?
Just a little bit of water is fine. And cap. That's going to be everywhere.
My eye. Wear a hairnet. Gorgeous
That's it.
color.
So if you did these ahead of time and you refrigerated them, you can get the sauce out. And just before serving, I didn't, but you could put nutmeg in there. You could put whatever seasoning you like. So just a little bit of that gorgeous.
Something a little different, so you're not always doing
Yeah, so it's
meatballs
always
and tomato sauce.
Exactly.
Love that.
All right. So you can spread that out. You can add the meatballs in there. And then
On
You
top
have a little
of
Parmesan
spaghetti, all covered with cheese.
and we try to use sharp cheeses here, so a little bit of Parmesan cheese on top. The sharp cheeses a little goes a long way. It has such a nice flavor, such a big flavor that you don't really need a lot of cheese on there.
That's right. Go for flavor. I think if anybody's ever tried to buy the low-fat cheese, it's just not. I don't find it enjoyable. It's better to go for the real thing and just use a little bit and get the flavor and get the satisfaction from it.
And that's it. And I'll show you guys in a second. But you just pop it underneath the broiler just until the cheese melts, and you have a really, really nice. You can serve it as a snack. You can serve that as a side dish. If you add a little bit of vegetables, you can complete a main meal with it too.
Awesome. So with your vitamin B12, if you've had any surgery to your stomach, you might actually not be absorbing enough vitamin B12 because it's a two-step process to be able to absorb the B12 that you're getting from your food. First of all, you need enough stomach acid. So again, if you've had surgery or any sort of illness that's affecting your stomach acid, you're not going to be able to separate the B12 from the protein that it comes together with, so you won't be able to absorb it. And then the second step is the stomach produces a protein called intrinsic factor that binds together with the vitamin B12, and it's needed so that it can be absorbed in the small intestine. So if you're not producing enough intrinsic factor in the stomach, then that's another situation where you wouldn't be getting enough. You might be eating a lot of B12 but not absorbing it. So in those situations, talk to your doctor and see if you might fall into that category, and you can get tests done to see if your vitamin B12 levels are low. And then you might be prescribed things like shots or higher doses so that you're getting the amount that you need. But again, very important that you're meeting those requirements because It's needed for proper nerve function and to prevent that megaloblastic anemia. So if you're starting to feel tired, short of breath, a lot of doctors will test for the iron, but you might want to test some of these other vitamin and mineral levels as well.
All right, so just gonna take these out of the oven. You can leave them in a little longer, but pretty much just until they're nice and hot. And again, you got a really nice squash sauce on the bottom.
Beauty. Get those healthy blood cells going.